Let's begin with this part of the bottle. To model it, add a plane, go into edit mode, and delete 2 vertices from one side. Now add a screw modifier and set the axis to Y. Since we need 2 extrusions, change iterations to 2. Then increase the screw value. Think of it like pulling up a folded piece of paper. Now, add a loop cut in the center. Scale it down on the Z-axis, and then merge all vertices by distance. Next, we need to make the top and bottom perfectly flat. To do that, extrude the edges along the Z-axis. Now, to flatten them, just scale on Z because it's standing along the Z-axis and press 0. That forces all the vertices into one line. Do the same for the other side so both ends are flat. Now, I will move these edges back a bit, since our cap is smaller and we don't want extra thickness here. And don't forget to merge the vertices. Since we extruded the top and bottom, they're not fully merged yet. To fix this, select the face where the loop cut ends. Switch to Edge Select Mode. Deselect the extra edges. And finally subdivide that edge 2 times. Now just bevel that loop cut and adjust it so the vertices line up perfectly. After that, merge the vertices by distance and remove the extra vertices. This will smooth out the shape without leaving gaps. After that, scale the shape to match your design. Then extrude the beveled section along the normals. Finally, add a subdivision surface modifier to smooth everything out. And it's done. Now let's finish the bottom part. Quick as duck. Extrude the base a little. Extrude again and scale it. Extrude again and move it down. Fill the bottom face. Then bevel the sharp edges on both the bottle and the cap. Next, select the bottom face, inset once, inset again, and move it slightly on the Z-axis. And boom, the bottle is done. Now let's make the cap. And honestly, I don't think this part needs much explanation. It's pretty straightforward. At last, let's add a solidify modifier to the bottle. And here's why. It's super important if you're making a glass material. In real life, glass always has thickness. So to make it look realistic, we need to give our model that thickness too. Okay, first let's create the floor by adding a plane mesh. But before that, I want to scale the whole model down so it feels more like a real world object when the light hits it. Blender's lighting reacts way more naturally when your model is closer to real-life scale. Now here's a quick tip. You can actually change Blender's unit from meters to centimeters. Makes life so much easier when you're working with real-world scale. And I know, 90% of you didn't even know this, right? Okay, so after scaling the whole scene down, let's fix the backdrop. Just increase the size of the plane, then extrude the edge that's behind the model, and finally bevel it. That way we get a nice, smooth curve instead of a hard corner. Perfect for clean renders. Now, let's add a camera and change the position according to your needs. Now let's move on to the texturing part. But before that, we need some lighting. Instead of adding lamps or area lights, I'm just going to drop in an HDRI. That way, we'll get realistic lighting and reflections without setting up any extra lights in the scene. Alright, let's start with a glass shader. First, set the transmission all the way up to 1. Then change the IOR from 1.5 down to about 1.350. After that, just add a little bit of roughness, somewhere around 0.2 or 0.3. That's your frosted glass ready. Now let's move on to the bottle cap. First, change its color to black. Then add a noise texture and hook it up using the object output from the texture coordinate node into the vector input. Finally, crank the scale all the way up to around 500, and that's going to give us that fine surface detail. Next, add a color ramp node after the noise. Drag the black handle in to boost the dark areas, and adjust it until you get the contrast you like. This way, you control how strong the black looks on the cap. Now, duplicate the noise texture and also the color ramp. This time, just flip the color ramp values, so black turns white and white turns black. Basically, we're inverting the texture to get the opposite effect. Then add a mix color node and connect the outputs. After that, change the mode from mix to multiply, so both textures would combine together. And now, to actually get those bumps, drop in a bump node, connect the color ramp's result to the height, and then hook its normal straight into the shader's normal. Instant surface detail. Right now it's looking way too rough. So let's dial down the distance from 0.001 to 0.0001. Much cleaner. But remember, don't just copy my numbers. Tweak these values until your material feels right. Let's start the capsule. Add a cylinder, scale it to your liking, and bevel the top and bottom faces. Drop a loop cut in the middle, bevel that, and then just scale up the top half. That's it. The capsule is done. Now, for the capsule shading. Super quick. Just crank the coat value all the way up to 1. Done. Pick whatever color you like. And don't stress if it looks a bit dull. We'll fix that magic later in the compositor. Now, let's fill the bottle with capsules. But before that, we need more capsules. To do that, we will use the array modifier. Simple and fast. Let's start by adding an array modifier. Then adjust the gap between each capsule. After that, just play with the count until it looks like the capsules fit nicely together. Now, to make another same row of capsules, just duplicate the array modifier. If you want the gaps to stay perfectly even, simply copy the same value from the previous axis and paste it into the new one. That way the spacing stays consistent. Now, let's add more rows of capsules. Using the exact same procedure, just duplicate the array modifier again, and simply change the axis, and at last apply all the array modifiers. After that, we need to separate all the capsules. Just go into edit mode, then hit P and then separate by loose parts. Now every capsule is its own object, and simply apply all transforms and origin to geometry. Now let's fill the bottle using rigid body physics. First, select one capsule and add a rigid body, and then set the shape to capsule for better performance. Then, add a rigid body to the bottle too, but set its type to passive. To quickly apply rigid body to all capsules, just select the main one with rigid body, then select the rest, making sure the main stays active. Then, go to Object, Rigid Body, and copy from active. Now all capsules now have the same physics applied. Now, here's a common problem. When you play the animation, the capsules might disappear or even blast out of the bottle. To fix this, select the plane backdrop and simply change its collision shape from convex hull to mesh. That way the capsules stay perfectly inside. Okay, time to export the UV layout. Jump back into edit mode, enable live, unwrap, and press this little icon right here. Now you'll see live updates on your UV layout. Next, let's start marking seams. I'll mark the front part first, since that's where our label will be placed. Now scale the UV faces to cover the layout. Now just head over to the UV menu and click Export UV Layout. This will save out the wireframe guide we'll use for our label design. Next, just import your UV layout into your favorite design software, whatever you vibe with. From here, you can design your label. I'm not going to explain this part because honestly, it's super straightforward.
Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel, guys. Today I am going to make a new video, so please whatever. Please I want to reach 1 million likes. So please
All right, let's start applying our label to the model. Pro tip, make sure your label has a transparent background. It makes the whole workflow so much easier. Add an image texture node and load in your label. Then, drop in a mix shader and connect the alpha output of the image straight into the factor. After that, add a second principled BSDF and plug it into the lower socket of the mix shader. Now, whatever changes you make, like color, roughness, metallic, will only affect the label part. Finally, just rotate, scale, and move your UV layout until the label sits perfectly on your bottle. Okay, finally, let's rotate our HDRI until the lighting hits just right. Then tweak the strength value according to your needs. Brighter for a clean product look. Lower if you want a more moody. The scene is ready. You can even add one more bottle to balance and fill the scene, or just ignore it and keep it minimal. All right, time to make it even better. First, render the scene once. Now, hop over to the compositor and check Use Nodes. Head to the Passes tab and tick Denoising Data because we're not going to use Blender's default denoiser. Now, add a denoise node and hook it up. Normal to normal, albedo to albedo. Next, drop in a hue saturation node and push the saturation up just a little. This instantly makes your render pop with richer colors. And that's it. Just preview your render or hit render again, and you're done.
Okay, thank you.